What's up? Tabletop Syndicate, Joker Prime and Squints.
Hey, what's up?
Top fives, we enjoy doing them. We just sit and talk about this stuff anyway. And
Absolutely.
you all, we get a lot of feedback and interaction with you all this way, which is something we really want. So we enjoy doing these, so we want to keep bringing them to you.
Absolutely. We've done, three
I think
or
we've
so.
got like 3 up right now.
So keep watching those, keep commenting, and we're going to keep bringing the content, and we've enjoyed doing this series. So
today we're bringing you a new one, and that is top 5 Heroclix DC Sets.
that's right. Starting with DC, and when we say sets, we mean the WizKids releases clicks in sets, and so you get to buy, obviously your boosters or a brick or an entire case,
Or gravity feeds.
or exactly gravity feed starters, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so this one is a little more limited because it's DC, and we get about one of those a year if we're lucky.
No kidding. Yeah.
So there's about half to choose from. So I felt like I was putting almost every single set on the list.
Right, and it's kind of one of those things where you're like, well, like it made it easier, but then it made it more difficult. Like it was just like a double-edged sword. It's like, oh, there's fewer of them to pick from, and then you're like, wait, crap, there's fewer of them to pick from.
Yeah.
So which ones do I pick?
Right.
Because it's only 5.
Yeah. So just as we've been doing, we're gonna do our top 5, and before our number ones, we're gonna throw in some honorable mentions that we really like, but didn't quite crack the list. We thought about and we wanted to mention, but
Absolutely.
so.
Even though you're wearing a Marvel shirt today and I'm wearing Batman,
So weird.
typically you're more of a DC guy. Do you want to get started off, or?
Sure, so I'll start with my number 5. My number 5 for DC Sets is Harley Quinn and the Gotham Girls.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't. Wow, I didn't even think that would be on your honorable mentions. Okay,
Really?
all right. Well, maybe I'm forgetting what's in that set.
So, big part of it, overall, not as solid throughout, like not a set where I wanted every piece, including
Right.
commons and uncommons. The main reason is the chases.
Okay,
They are
gotcha.
probably my favorite DC chases, maybe. It's the God
It's a bold
chases.
statement.
Green Lantern,
I
God of Light.
forgot. I forgot. Okay.
Batman, God of Knowledge.
Touche.
Shazam,
Touche.
God of Gods. So I love those guys.
I hate him. So,
They are quite possibly my favorite. Off the
Yeah.
top of my head.
well, because it's like the strongest version of your favorite characters,
Right.
And so that makes sense.
And, I like my Dark Knight's metal, but these guys are also quintessence
Right.
and protected outwit and just have cool stuff all around. Sculpts included. Like Batman God of Knowledge in the Mobius chair. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's kind of one of those things when you talk about before clicks was even a thing. Like I would always talk about with friends, like, oh, dude, what if like Batman like reached his ultimate limit, or like
Right.
what if Flash reached his like highest peak limit,
Right.
and like what would that look like? And I feel like they did that kind of. I totally forgot about those guys.
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
So, that's the main reason. I mean, there's some other stuff in that set I really like. There's I think some good Suicide Squad came out of that set, which I
Okay.
really like too. But that's the predominant reason.
Okay.
So,
I got you. That's fair. That's fair. All right. So that was your top 5. My top 5.
number 5.
You're right. My bad. My number 5. I went ahead and I went with one that I didn't want to put on there just out of spite, but it is a really good set, so I figured I'd throw it in there. But I was gonna put it on number 5 because I'm petty. War of Light.
Wow.
So I
Dang,
almost didn't put
that's-
on the list because I've been brutalized by that set and every piece in that set. But in terms of like, if you just kind of put that aside, it is an amazing set. They captured the entire Lantern, like everything there is to be about Lanterns. I mean, I don't read as much comics as I would like to, but I did know about the Lanterns, mostly about Green Lanterns, Sinestro, some of the offshoots. But once you started buying into that set, I was like, oh wow, and I started kind of digging into what's the lore of all these Lanterns.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, and I
Need
mean,
the third one up there.
no, oh, there's a third one?
Yeah.
Holy cow. And so I thought that the WizKids does a great job at times kind of bringing in stuff from comics and kind of trying to represent it the best they can. And I felt like with just the theme of Green Lanterns and the fact that the WizKids released like the resources, the batteries, and the constructs.
Yeah.
The way it played in the game was as close as you could probably get to the way it was in the comics, if that makes any sense.
Right.
I don't know. But I thought they did a really good job with it. Yes, I've been brutalized by those pieces time and time again, but I thought it was a really good set.
You know you love them too, though.
They are really awesome. It's just, if you don't have a team that's prepared to play against the Lanterns with all their resources and constructs and everything, it's not going to be a fun game for you.
Right. I kind of think with the power creep, it's getting to where they're more playable with the way we play too,
Yes,
though.
that's probably true.
To where it's a little more even and still fun, not as brutal for one side or the other.
Right. And again, I thought the batteries were just awesome touch. To be able to do resources and be able to put constructs on laners, like that makes complete logical sense. Like,
yeah.
And I thought they did a really good job of bringing that into the game.
Yeah, and they had like maps for every lantern core too. That kind of gave them bonuses, or you could put your battery in a special place, which was cool.
So just all in all, man, they kind of just went all in on that set. And I thought, I mean, it wasn't even, you and I weren't playing Clicks when it was released, but I kind of wish we were, because that would have been amazing.
Yeah. All right, so those were 5s. What is your number 4?
So my number four is for short Slosh, which is Super Legion,
Superman. Legion of Super.
Yeah, Super. I always mess that up. I always just call it Slosh for short. So I forgot to mention my top 5 for this was pretty heavy towards newer sets, which I mean the 2 I just mentioned are older-ish sets. But I forgot to mention, like, there's been so many sets released. Clicks has been around for a really long time, but you and I really didn't get into it until Avengers Infinity, which was at 2017 or 2018.
Probably. I think like 2018.
2018. So most of the stuff I have on there is things that I have personally bought into that were released, or that I've gone back and bought singles from, or things like that I've enjoyed playing in my teams. And so I realize some of you that may be watching this who have been in it for a long time, you're like, oh, what about this and that? I apologize. There's just so much. There's so much that's been released, and so it was difficult to do. But you and I,
and there's no hard data behind these choices.
True.
It's purely our personal feelings.
Absolutely. And so Slosh I thought was really cool, because I think that when I was trying to do this top 5, I tried to think of sets that were as complete as possible. Where it wasn't just one or two pieces, which there were a ton of sets where I'm like, oh, like that's one of my favorite pieces or my favorite flashes. But I tried to get ones that were as complete as possible, where I'm like, hey, I will go buy a case, and then I still wanted more. And so I felt like Slosh, they did a good job of introducing a bunch of not just superheroes, but also villains. Yeah. And so I thought it was really enjoyable.
And I'm not super heavy into the Legion of Superheroes. More recently, I've started wanting to kind of play around with that team, because it is such a huge team to choose from. They put out so many figures with that.
Right.
But my favorite thing about Slosh is the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it wasn't just heroes; it was also villains, and they released like entire teams, not just one or two people.
The Fast Force was the entire Legion of Doom, and then they also had every one of those pieces in the main set.
Yeah, and not all of them were rares and chases. Some of them were uncommons and rares, and not just. I meant to say super rares at first.
Right. What was the chases in that set? I'm trying to remember now.
I should have had an answer ready for you.
I'm blanking.
So am I. As am I. I have to pull it open. But Fatal 5 was really cool in that set as well.
I forgot that was
Fatal 5 was in that set. See, the chases might have been one of those things that I wasn't impressed with, but the rest of the set was really cool. Which is probably why it was one of my favorites, because sometimes it is frustrating when all of your pieces that you want are just chases, and it's hard to get your hands on. But
no, that is a good point. That there are a couple of those DC sets kind of like that for me. It's like I like the whole set and don't care necessarily about the chases as much.
Right.
Which I tend to like those sets more, because they're more attainable to the pieces I actually want.
Right. So that was my number 4, right?
Yep. Right. So my number 4 is JLU.
Nice.
Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah. Okay. And that's fairly recent.
That is. Yep. I don't know. I was very skeptical of that set at first.
Right.
Especially because, like, I was not really interested in Batman animated series like at all.
Yep, I remember that.
And some of those kind of based on the cartoons just initially, I'm like, I don't care as much about that. But then as I started seeing things come out about JLU and as I started actually seeing it, and then after I got it,
Right.
I really liked it a lot. You know, some of the chases, a few of them were like the Super Friends, but they also added in the Let's Call It Trouble.
Trouble
Let's
Alert
Call
or
It
whatever?
Trouble.
Oh, okay.
Trouble Alert was the Justice League ones, but basically the villain version. So like the Brainiac and the Gorilla Grodd and the Black
so
Manta,
cheap
Lex
too, right?
Luthor, and they're the really cheap ones that you
Okay.
can call in if you I think if you crit hit,
Okay.
you get to call them on in. And so they're fun, but also just the whole set in general. I love the Atom, super rare Atom from that set.
That's right.
He's
that's right.
fun, little cheap guy. I mean, really, we got some good Martian Manhunters finally in that set.
Yes.
Well, that was like a long
Long
kind
time
of
coming, I feel like.
They had put out like the OP kit one not too long before that.
And it was okay.
And it was nice to finally have one because it had been so long before that. But then that set way more playable, like two very, very playable Martian
Yeah,
Manhunters.
because I think it was like if the Fast Force had one,
it was a starter, I think.
the starter, and then there was the rare, and then I think there was even an uncommon. But yeah, you're right. That was a huge bonus for me on that set as well.
Yeah.
Martian Manhunter.
And so just again one where the whole set I wanted, you know, some good hot girls. Just really added in some figures for Justice League that I maybe didn't have any go-tos of.
And it had a Justice Lord in it too, didn't it?
The Justice Lords were in that, yeah. So yeah, that was my number 4.
Very nice. Okay, so we're down to 3s, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my number 3 is Batman animated. And so, and it's funny because Joker Prime just mentioned that he wasn't excited about that at all. But when it was released, I bought into it because, like you've already alluded to, DC doesn't release a ton of sets, and so the fact that it was a DC set was exciting, first of all. But then, like, I bought it and I was like, oh yeah, like I remember watching this cartoon, the animated series, and like this got a lot of fun pieces. They look like they do from the cartoon.
Right.
It had one of my favorite Batmans. The Batman from the Fast Force set has like a 12 attack. He had a really cool trait where he could like pick a different elevation, like 3 squares away, and like place himself in it.
Yeah.
And so he had a cool
Zip
placement.
line thing.
Yeah. And so a grappling hook.
Yeah.
And so like he had a really cool placement. And same thing with the Robin. And so I was like, it was a fun piece to play. Plus they had, you know, a ton of Jokers. They had like 3 or 4 Jokers.
At least they might have
Easily.
Yeah.
You know, Poison Ivies and Penguins and all these pieces that I had wanted to get and buy when I got into Heroclix, but I leaned heavier towards Marvel because, I mean, you know, clicks can get fairly expensive at times if you know, over purchase, if you don't resell and stuff, which, you know, now that I've been in it for a long time, I've learned how to, you know, get some of my money back from my breaks by selling pieces I don't really want.
Right.
But at first I was just buying. And, you know, you were more into DC, and so I didn't buy super heavy into it. And so when it came out, I was like, oh, there's a ton of pieces that I want. Like, you know, I don't have a lot of Jokers. I don't have a lot of Penguins.
And the Bane you got from that
The
set
Bane,
is pretty awesome.
absolutely. And the Poison Ivies, Catwomans. There's all these awesome villains from Batman series. Plus, obviously, Batman and Robin are my 2 favorite. And I thought they did a really good job with most of the sculpts. And so that is my number 3.
Yeah, so like Batman animated, I wasn't excited about it first. And as you got into it more, there was a few pieces I kind of cherry picked, and you also fortunately had some dupes that you gave me and things. Bane is still one I need to acquire because he's awesome, and I don't really have a go-to Bane.
Yeah, the Bane you're thinking about, however, the one that I think you're thinking about is from Joker's Wild, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think it is.
The one you played against me?
In the temple or the...
With your Joker and Ace?
I think so, yes. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Either way, there is a
I need that guy too.
Yeah, there is a really good Bane from that set.
Okay. So I still never got that into it. I kind of picked out a few of the pieces I liked from it. And then some of the chases, obviously, that was
Right.
where they first did the trouble alerts with the
Yeah,
Justice
super
Friends and
cheap,
stuff.
pieces to call them in if you couldn't miss.
Yeah, so it ended up being better than I thought, but still not one that I ever got heavily into.
Okay.
But my number 3 was Flash.
Nice, I like
The
that.
Flash set is awesome. Like another one that pretty much on a whole, I want most of the pieces. A lot of rogues and like Suicide Squad crossover, Secret Society of Supervillains, I think. And then also obviously the Flashes. And then probably by far my favorite piece from the entire set was Black Lantern Zoom.
I forgot. Yeah, right. Yep. Amazing sculpt, amazing piece to play in the game, and just a cool representation from the comics.
A lot of the speedster sculpts in that are awesome.
Oh yeah.
There's I think it was a super rare, that really cool sculpt that was the like Jay Garrick or why am I blanking on the word? The Casey Kingdom Come Flash.
Oh,
that really cool sculpt.
Okay.
So no, I just and it, like the Gorilla Grodd.
That I was waiting. I was gonna let you kind of like finish, and then I was gonna say that's probably my favorite thing from that set is the Gorilla Grodd. He's the best Gorilla Grodd that I think they've released.
Yeah, he's
he
awesome.
is fairly expensive, but he has 2 different dials he can be played on, right?
Yep.
I'm pretty 2 different dials can be played
Remember
on.
the point value.
And he has every single keyword you could potentially.
He's got a
think of.
lot.
And so anytime I build a team that has Gorilla Grodd on it, he's usually the one I put on the team.
And the cool thing about him, it's like, yeah, Gorilla Grodd needs mind control, but sometimes it's like, I don't want to just mind control this guy and then have to make an attack to miss another attack or something. But he gets to like Pinsai for hitting with mind control or whatever,
which is awesome. I think it's at no cost after you mind control. Amazing.
So yeah, he's a lot of fun, and he improves over elevation and stuff like that. So yeah, I really like the Flash set.
Heck yeah. So that was your 3?
Yep, those were 3s.
So now you're number 2.
My number 2 is Rebirth.
Nice. Yes.
That was a set I was super excited about. I wasn't sure at first because I had seen some of the Rebirth comics, but not gotten very much into them yet at the time. And I don't remember. Oh, that was following Batman Animated, right?
Which one?
Rebirth.
It is after.
So,
yes.
like right after. So I had been almost on like a 2-year drought of DC.
That's true. You're like, animated, that was trash, whatever.
And so maybe that's why it's so high on my list, but I was so...
Yes.
I wish there would have been Dyson tokens with it. Like, why the heck couldn't you have just made the freaking Dark Knight's Metal tokens or something for us? But I loved it. It was awesome. I loved the map that came with it. One side was the Teen Titans.
Teen Titans Tower, and then the
other side was the arena, the Death Metal Arena or whatever.
Good maps,
and just the set, again, I mentioned earlier, the Dark Knight Metal chases, or the Dark Knight's chases.
Yeah, it's really cool because like they're basically different versions of Bruce Wayne, right?
Yeah, they're like nightmare versions of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, and they're dirty. They have so many cool, fun, additional damage that they could do to their opponents after hitting. And they get like pluses for their opponents being in like open terrain, or
they get pluses for different things, like if they're in open or if you're in hindering, and if you can use stealth, they get pluses to their defense.
So yeah, they look really cool. Sculpts look awesome. They have some cool character traits, and it's kind of a cool like what if like Bruce Wayne.
Some good Teen Titans.
Oh yes.
The Defiance was kind of cool. I wasn't super into it, but it was cool. It was a whole little team right there for you. And then Speed Force Sword Deathstroke.
He was Rebirth, wasn't he?
Yes.
That guy. Man.
He was awesome. Oh, wait a minute. But regardless of all the chases and everything, probably by far, my favorite piece from the set is Mr. Oz.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. What? Okay, yeah.
Mr. Oz, like, he's like the first super rare I pulled from the set too. And I love that guy.
I mean, talk about one of the best support pieces that WizKids has ever made. You can see through everything. You get to prob from like 12 squares away.
He only gets to see through everything with his prob.
True. Okay, true. Yeah.
But
the most important.
Yeah, it's like 12 squares. and then he can TK. Plus, after someone's TK'd, he can place them within 2 squares. So you can use that to your advantage or your opponent's disadvantage.
Yeah, I always forget about the TK thing.
And all that support, he's got, what's the team ability called?
Hyper time.
Hyper time. So your opponent has to even roll to get adjacent to him, and he has stealth and super senses.
You're just making so many bad memories pop up.
And that's only for 40 points. If you want to pay 60 more and play him on his top dial, if they finally do get to hit him, then he becomes a sweet attacker with Pinsai and a placement ability.
Dude is really good.
I don't use that as much. I really want to play him on that again because it's like so hard to not just take 40 points of that amazing
prob.
Yeah.
So no, that piece is really good. They did a great job with that, and the sculpt looks pretty sweet too.
Yeah.
So nice, and that was your number 2, wasn't it?
That was.
Oh, wow, we're speeding through this. All right, so my number 2 is one that you've already mentioned, JLU.
Oh, that is good.
And so the reason why I like the JLU is because I think as a set as a whole, they got to represent a ton of different teams and just overall characters. So you got to see some of the super villain teams. You got to see some of the superhero teams.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mention whenever I was talking about it, like the Injustice League stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And like they had that cool character trait in Justice League where you get to roll to give a token.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the Solomon Grundy from that set I thought was amazing.
The Jokers.
Jokers, no. So I didn't get to play these a whole lot, which I'm surprised he didn't mention. He just forgot.
I can't believe I didn't mention.
There's so much in our heads right now. But the Jokers from that set were well done because they were basically like a swarm team where you get to like pay for one dude, like the real Joker, and then a bunch of decoys.
Like you pay for the first one, then for 20 more points you get 2 more, but then he's got shape. They've all got shape change where they can generate more.
Yeah, so it becomes a swarm team potentially, especially against the right teams or against the right pieces that can't reduce damage because they also have poison. One time,
stealth, something else.
Oh god, because one time you played against that team against like my a team that had a bunch of super sense, like they had no reducers, and so they just poisoned me to death, and so
surrounded and poisoned.
Yeah, it was rough, but that's really cool.
Yeah, and the Dr. Fates.
And the Fates, because the Dr. Fates are basically the same thing that the Jokers were, but they're Dr. Fates, and they have Mystic, so if you do actually hit them, you're gonna take penetrating damage unless you can find a way not to take that. They get to carry the flyers.
Enhancement.
They have enhancement, so they're gonna just boost up your damage, which now with the new rules is even more gross because you can't perplex damage anymore. And they get what is it, 11 Pinsai? That's not Pinsai, is
TK.
it? Oh, yeah, TK. Yeah, TK. So those 2 pieces alone, and they were commons and uncommons.
I can't believe I didn't mention either of those.
Like I said, there's so much that we're thinking about.
No, they were all commons.
Oh, you're right. The Jokers and the Fates were just commons.
That's another reason that set was awesome because it's like I want more of these same
colors. And normally you don't want dupes, but for that you definitely wanted it. And so that was awesome. They also, you didn't mention, and I knew I was going to talk about JLU anyway, so I figured I'd wait. They had the team up cards.
Oh yes,
so that was kind of a cool.
First time
you and I
did
did.
That.
I mean, also you and I haven't played it a ton, but I think it's a really cool mechanic.
I used to a little bit with like Hawk Girl, I think. And
okay.
Hawk Girl and I don't remember now.
So basically, you get the same piece, but you get a different card, and as long as you build that piece with certain characters on your team, they get like pluses.
There's ones for like an individual, like one other specific character,
right?
And so, just off the top of my head, I think it's like if you're teamed up with Flash, then that character gets super senses or something like that.
Yeah, which is really cool. And so I thought it was a cool mechanic. Like you said, the Martian Manhunters. Finally, we got a Martian Manhunter. I think that for the longest time, he was just never done well. So I was super excited about that. Like, when I went to go buy JLU, it was like, as long as I pull the rare Martian Manhunter, like, I don't care what else I pull. Because that's one of the one pieces I wanted from that set.
And I may have put JLU too low. Again, this was tough. And I didn't want to, like, top load it with just, like, new sets in a row or whatever.
Right.
Like, oh, just all the new sets and then everything else. But
that's fair.
JLU was awesome.
So that was my number 2. So now it's time for honorable mentions, I think.
Yes.
Okay, you want to start it off?
Sure.
Okay.
So my first honorable mention might be a big curveball, but it is Wonder Woman 80.
Nice. That's good.
So it didn't actually break into my top 5. Obviously, one thing that came with it was the big rule changes, which was cool.
Yeah.
the really cool miniatures game.
Almost forgot.
And then some awesome pieces. I really liked the Greek gods.
Exactly, the new Greek gods, they did a good job of.
It gave me in the past I've kind of looked at Amazon like, do I want to try to build that, and then move past it. And now I'm kind of like, I do want to try to build an Amazon
Because they
team.
released a ton of characters.
Fun revamp of that. Obviously, I loved the chases, which I still haven't gotten into acquiring much of yet.
Okay.
Half of them are Dark Knights, so they go with the ones from Rebirth that we mentioned, and half of them are lanterns.
Which, I mean, yeah, that makes sense for you.
Basically, though, the main lantern I want from the set was a super rare prime black lantern Wonder Woman.
She was amazing.
And so I did acquire her, so I haven't chased down those chases so hard yet. And I got the Commissioner, and who was the other one I got?
I can't remember.
I can't think of her. Deathbringer.
Okay.
So that's who I've got so far. A couple of them are still way high priced. Guy Garner, Red Lantern, is awesome. He's ridiculous. He's got that chainsaw so he can run up and throw out a pog that does exploit blades or something.
Oh, yeah.
So he's still expensive because of the meta potential. I don't know how much he's really being used, but he's highly valued still, so I haven't gone after him. But Wonder Woman 80, I liked it a lot. One of the reasons it didn't end up making my list, though, was partially because of the benched powers.
Yeah, that was kind of annoying.
So, no hypersonic with any of the flashes,
right.
No invincible with anyone, some of that kind of stuff. There was a lot more penetrating damage though, and mystics. So I really liked it, and it's kind of evening out. But at the same time, when it first came out and we were still playing some of those other pieces, it's
annoying.
I can't. I got a lot of penetrating, but you still have invincible with that guy, and I don't.
Right.
So that's kind of part of the reason it's there. My next honorable mention was Joker's Wild.
Absolutely.
Jokers.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite Joker of all probably is the Killing Joke Joker with him in the chair with the camera.
Yeah.
Love him. He's awesome. The Haha Joker with all the laughing behind him. I just loved all the Jokers and that I've read the comics that I know they were based off of.
Right.
Was cool too. But I don't think there was enough in that set, and it's a little bit dated. It's kind of in that middle range. There's a few sets in that middle range between the power creep and the ones that we reduce.
Right.
Because the way we reduce makes some of those older ones a little stronger and more competitive.
Yes.
So there's some of those things, and Joker's Wild's one of the one in there where the combat values
are a little underwhelming.
Are a little lower, or a little too low. Because now it's not necessarily just the character traits and the special abilities they're given that are ridiculous. It's the values themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have an 11 attack, it's almost like...
Some of the characters you really like and want to play from that set are start out with a 10 attack or and a 17 defense.
It's really annoying, yeah.
So, and then my final honorable mention is Trinity War.
Heck yeah.
I like Trinity War a lot. First of all, is that the one that the Trinity that you played is from?
Yes, the Batman, the Wonder Woman, and the Superman, they released them all, and they have they can buff each other, and they have all some amazing character traits.
They have a lot going on. Batman alone has utility to choose so many things.
Yeah,
he can prob and outwit and perplex, and also choose an attack or a damage ability, and
insane.
A lot of crazy stuff. And then Superman's ridiculous, and Wonder Woman's cool, and they give each other their team abilities.
Yes.
But also in that set, the chases were the Sins.
Oh yeah, they were.
And the Crime Syndicate of America was in that set.
Okay, nice.
So there's a fast force of them and also a main set, and that's kind of an offshoot, another evil version of the Justice League.
Yes, which they don't release very many of in terms of Crime Syndicate.
It'd be kind of cool to get an updated Crime Syndicate team or something, but that's a really cool team. So that was my final honorable mention.
Yeah, so my honorable mentions were... Sorry, you just mentioned one of them, and I now just forgot it.
Wonder Woman?
No, Joker's Wild. Thank you. So Joker's Wild was one of my honorable mentions, and we just talked about them, and so I won't talk too much about them. And then the other honorable mention that I thought of, which you didn't mention, was World's Finest. So World's Finest, I thought it had some pretty fun pieces in it. That if I'm not mistaken, it has one of my favorite Etrigan, I believe.
Oh yeah.
And it has like Element Man.
Now is that the Etrigan that can basically he was like one of the shifting focus
yeah, almost.
Yeah.
And he's
switch between Jason Blood.
Yes, and cool. Well, no, he doesn't. It's the one that.
It's the one with the sword.
The sword. Yes,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the one with the sword, and he can take away, or he kind of heals every time he gets to go to a different click or something.
Gotcha.
He has 2 different dials he bounces back and forth on. And so I thought the World's Finest was pretty cool, and it's got some really good Batmans and Supermans and Wonder Womans, which are some of my favorite characters from DC. So those are my honorable mentions.
All right, so now we're moving into number ones.
Number 1, drum. You want to go first, or want me to go first?
I'll go first because I'm not sure what yours is going to be.
Okay.
Mine's been mentioned, but you probably know what it is, and that's War of Light.
Yeah, there it is.
Your number 5 was my number 1. I mean, he mentioned a little bit. We talked a little bit, but I can never talk enough about War of Light. Now, sometimes mentally, I lump in some of the things that weren't necessarily included with it, so everything Lantern in my head goes into
War
it.
of Light, yeah.
So some things I may be including that that weren't actually in there. You may have noticed in 2 of my other top 5s, I mentioned Lantern pieces.
Yes.
Wonder Woman 80 had the Black Lantern Wonder Woman, and Flash had Black Lantern Zoom.
Yes.
But this set was amazing because also something we mentioned with JLU is wanting the commons.
Yeah, true.
They did generic commons in that, so there was recruits for each of the forces as well, so lower filler characters.
Exactly. You can fill out because some of the ones that you wanted are super expensive.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to have the fillers.
It's just awesome that you can build these full, huge Lantern teams plus the resources. And not only that, but you could build a team and have pieces from that team that you didn't even pick because there's so many of each team. Mm-hmm. It's not just they put just enough to make an exact team of a Blue Lanterns.
Right.
The one core that wasn't super represented is White Lanterns.
Yeah, that's very few pieces.
They don't release much White Lantern at all, unless they have some that are older, pre-Oreo base, that are kind of cool, but they haven't done a lot of updated White Lanterns. And I'm not huge on the Indigo, but all the others are just awesome.
Sapphire,
freaking
Blue.
Kyle Rayner from that set. I think he was an LE maybe, or Chase.
He was either a Chase or an LE, yes.
Because that set was before we got into it, so obviously OP and LE and Chase, and there might even been Gravity Feed. I think the constructs were in Gravity Feeds.
Okay.
Something like that. We aren't super aware how that was working at the time, but that Chase Kyle Rayner has a stop click that's ridiculous. It gives him an old ability, which is duo attack,
yes.
So it's
plus placement.
It's like flurry with range, and he gets to be placed between each attack, and has outwit and a huge defense, and it's just freaking amazing.
It's one of the most overpowered pieces I've come across.
The Simon Baz, from that set, you have to kill twice.
Okay, I forgot about him.
And those chases were cool because they had special bases where you could put a construct on the base.
That was one of the cooler things I thought, because they thought about, okay, so we were going to build these constructs and we're going to give them to these characters, and they thought of a way to put it on the base, which doesn't happen. So I thought, you're right, that it was really cool.
So easily, War Light has to be my favorite set. I want to own everything Lantern.
There was over 100 pieces released from that set.
Yeah, and it's just so much fun.
Oh,
and so many choices, and I just love what they do. And there's variability in them, and The Green Lanterns are so much better now that you can carry all the lanterns are better now
Yeah.
that you can carry flyers, but Green Lantern particularly with their team ability.
Oh yeah, because most of the lanterns were already flyers anyway, so it was like their team ability was wasted.
I used to be like, I could carry my whole team, but I can't.
Because they're all flyers. So that was a big improvement for sure.
So that's my number one, of course, War of Light.
All right, so my number one has also already been mentioned, and that's Rebirth.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Rebirth was one of my favorites. One of the reasons why it was my favorite was because they released Teen Titans, and up until that point, I didn't have any Teen Titans really. Especially some of my. I mean, obviously there was Robins that I had. That's not hard to get, but Cyborg, that was one of the coolest cyborgs I had seen. Beast Boy, I thought that sculpt was amazing.
And he was cool getting to pick powers.
Yeah, exactly. He can pick powers and depending on what beast he wants to turn into. And so I loved that. And plus the rest of them, obviously. Now, they had Rebirth. They had a Raven, obviously.
My favorite Raven, she carries and outwits and pros.
Yes. Yeah, okay, thank you. Because there's been some other pretty good Ravens as well. But I love that they released the entire Teen Titans team. And I love that they... one of the coolest Superman sculpts I think that they've released. He's just like shredded.
Ripped up.
He's just like just massive, and he's flying. And I thought he looked awesome. He's really strong, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I really liked that. And plus, like you said, they only released one DC set per year basically. And up until that point, it was just basically Batman animated. And before that, you and I had maybe a few other DC
right
stuff.
before.
I think Batman Animated might have been one of our first DC sets we bought.
Batman Animated, I think, was right after Harley Quinn. Maybe?
Harley Quinn, okay.
My first DC set I bought into was Joker's Wild.
Joker's Wild, but that was released before we really started playing the
Yeah.
game. So we had to go back and retroactively.
We still
buy
had
that.
some at our local shop.
Yeah, okay. So it was just really cool because like Batman Animated, I did like more than you did. Obviously, it was in my top, but that was limited because it was just Batman Animated.
Yeah.
And so
Rebirth was definitely probably like the biggest DC set that was more comic based. Because I mentioned Batman Animated was maybe the first one that came out since we were playing.
Since we started actually
I'd have
like
to look for sure.
new stuff that like was being released, and so it was really cool to be able to see all the different types of teams. Like you got your Legions of Doom.
Rebirth might have been the first time I was like, should I buy a case?
Yeah, exactly. So I really enjoyed Rebirth. Had some good stuff in it, and so that is my number one. And
yeah,
so
awesome. Well, there you have it. I mean, again, this was not easy to make at all, and it's purely based on how it makes us feel happy inside, and not on any data or anything like that. But obviously, I love doing this list as well. It was hard for me because I just love DC so much. A lot of good things to choose from, but that's what we're going with for our top 5 Heroclix DC sets.
absolutely, make sure to like, subscribe, comment below, let us know what your top 5 is.
And spoiler alert, we're gonna be coming at you with the Marvel one.
Absolutely, it had to come.
Stay posted for that.